Today, we are going to think about learned helplessness. So, to those of you who haven't heard of it, there can be learned helplessness among parents of children with complex needs, and there can be learned helplessness for the children who have complex needs. So, let's look at both. First of all, let's look at parents who have developed learned helplessness. So, learned helplessness develops for a parent when they have a child with complex needs and they didn't expect it at all. It's a complete surprise. And so they tend then, not all the time, but a lot of the time, rely on professionals, rely on people that they think know more than they do about their child because their child has complex needs. Now, in some instances, and certainly depending on what area we're looking at, that professional may have more knowledge, but only in an area that they are trained in. So they're not going to know everything that there is to know about your child. And in fact, you will know a lot more about your child because you are there most of the time. For some people, all of the time, but it depends on family dynamics, etc. So it is, for instance, that you tend to rely on them for judgments. But whenever you go to a meeting with professionals, particularly when it's a multi-agency meeting where the professionals representing different areas, so it could be education, could be social services, it could be health, and so on and so forth. So you are in a room with these professionals, and you may feel overawed, and you may decide that they know best. And in some instances I've had with parents, because they have felt in some circumstances that they've gone to some meetings and they haven't felt listened to, or they felt talked down to, or they don't understand some of the language that's being used. And I would say to those parents, if they don't feel confident enough to attend on their own, then go with somebody else. So you can ask for somebody from social services to go with you. There are many charities. If your child has a particular condition, you will find that there are innumerable charities now available online that you can tap into, and where somebody from a charity related to your child's condition will volunteer to come along with you to any meeting that you need them to. And so I would urge you to do that rather than end up stop going to these meetings. And some parents do decide not to go to meetings because they feel overwhelmed by them and they feel that they're not participating, that no one's listening. But this is the time when they have to listen. And parents often don't realize the power they have. All right. There is a word that goes around education circles for certain. I'm sure it probably does in the other circles too. And the words are parent power. And parents have a tremendous amount of power. So you are there representing your child. It is your child. It is not their child. It is your child. So you are trying to do the best for your child, and you want them to do their best too. And so you are there to ensure that that happens. And if you've got, I would always recommend that you read through any documents beforehand so that you're not suddenly presented with things that you don't know about. They have to, by law, give you all these documents beforehand. If you're at a meeting and suddenly you're surprised by some documents that are being shown and you haven't seen them, then you tell them straight away, we can't discuss this. I haven't been given these documents. And if they say something like, oh, well, we sent them to you a week ago, say, well, then, did you send them to my address? Do you have my correct email? Because I haven't received them. And so I am saying that I don't want this discussed until I've managed to read it for myself, first of all. Okay. Now, when I say read it for myself, it can be sometimes that you ask the charity that you're working with, or somebody from social services, or a relative, somebody who you feel confident with, to talk it through. so that you process what you want to say before you go to the meeting. Because sometimes you feel so bombarded with information that you might not feel able to say what given time you would be able to say. And if you've talked it through with somebody who you are taking to the meeting beforehand, they can give you that little reminder that, oh, you wanted to talk about this. Okay. So that's to ensure that you haven't taken on board a behaviour of learned helplessness where you leave everybody to get on with it and you trust that they will, because you can't trust them, okay? They are only doing their job, all right? And you will come across many different people with things going on in their own lives sometimes that they have forgotten something that they wanted to say as well, or that they have put something to one side, or, and this is quite serious, they may not have even read the documentation before they come. Now, there are certain professionals, and it's notorious amongst special school heads, that these professionals do not turn up for these meetings. And I'm sorry to say, and I will say it on here, this is my channel, so I'm free to say it, and here's the truth. Speech therapists very rarely turn up to these meetings, and parents get very upset by it because often communication is an area that they really want support with. So, you know, when these meetings were changed from being, and I'm talking now actually about a special needs meeting, an annual review, it used to be called. And certainly in some countries, it's still called an annual review because it's a review yearly of documents. But in England, it's an EHCP. It's also the same in Ireland. In Wales, it's an IDP, and in Scotland, it's something like a CS. I think it's DP on the end. But anyway, they're all the same kind of documents. They're all there to protect your child, to ensure that they're getting the right support, the right special needs, alternative needs support that your child requires. And it is really incumbent upon you as the parent to ensure that these people are doing their jobs and are doing what your child needs. And it is your time to stress at these meetings what you want for your child. So if you're thinking, well, I know that I've seen that he enjoys music. Now, that may mean that your child would benefit from music therapy. And so at the meeting, you would say, I would like my child to receive music therapy. And the school may say, well, we don't provide it. And then the local authorities should be there represented, and you would say, can you find a way of providing it for me, please? Okay, so this is in all aspects of health and education that you want for your child. If you see a need for something, and you have to be vigilant in looking for this because sometimes it's quite hard to spot, then you need to ask for it at these annual meetings, which are no longer called annual reviews, which does sound quite a sensible name because you're reviewing annually, but the names have been changed. Millions it costs to change these names. And to be honest, I don't think they're any better than what they were. It certainly hasn't made professionals who didn't turn up for these meetings, okay? So I need to get off my soapbox there, and I'm moving on now to learned helplessness in children. So learned helplessness in children with complex needs. Just have a cup of tea before it goes cold. Learned helplessness in children, and this is quite I wouldn't say a tricky one, but you sometimes may not realize it, okay? So learned helplessness is when a child with complex needs who's neurodivergent. Don't forget, neurodivergent isn't just autism and ADHD. It's a huge umbrella of different conditions. So when a child has these needs, they may develop something called learned helplessness themselves. Now, this learned helplessness is when they no longer try to do what they were trying to do because they've spotted that you're not taking any notice of them. So they've tried to communicate in whichever way. Excuse me, I'm getting my dog. They've tried to communicate. My dog has diabetes, unfortunately. There we go. Sit behind me, darling. That's what she tends to like, snuggling up behind me. There we are. So learned helplessness is when a child will They may concentrate on just the basic needs being met because you've shown no inclination to respond to their gestures. So they may have been gesturing some things. For instance, some parents have told me that their child, when they're changing them at home, may lift their bottom to be helped. Now, that kind of information needs to be passed on because sometimes you will get a very good but very busy, very rushed member of staff who immediately goes in and quickly changes the child as fast as they can to get onto the next child or to get onto the next job. Now, although that's very thorough and it's done in a caring way, it is not allowing that child the time that that child needs to communicate that they may want to help in some way. So they may want to show that they can lift their bottom. They may want to be able to try and put their arm into the top that you've got there for them. And these things need to be given time because we need desperately to give those child their independence. We need to help them build neural pathways where they can progress and not remain stagnant or not remain in a learned helplessness state where they just give up and think, yeah, here we are. You dress me, you do what you've got to do because that's what you're showing me you want. And children want to please. And if you are suggesting to the child that this is what you expect of them and this is what you want, then they will try to please you. And they may make noises, wanting a basic need met. Sometimes then this can be described as behaviour, negative behaviour and so on, but it's not. It's them showing you that actually, if you only allowed them, they would do more. They want you to communicate with them at their level. And that's what it is about. It's about communicating with them at their level so that you understand what they're possibly can do. So learned helplessness is when they just give up trying completely and just become what you always imagined they were because of their complex needs. You may imagine that they're not capable of doing this, they're not capable of doing that. And your impression of them is going to be mirrored by them because they're trying to please you and they want to do what's expected of them by you. So learned helplessness is massive, as we've said. You know, as adults ourselves, we can't give in to learned helplessness when we want to protect our child and we want the best for their child. Okay, for our child. All right. We don't let others do things for us. Okay, that's the adult side of it. The child side of it is sort of a mirror of that because the child is allowing others to do things for themselves as well. They are becoming helpless and there's no need for them to become helpless. Okay, I'm going to stop it there because I could go on forever. I've written about it in my latest book, which is with publishers, and that's Early Years and Neurodivergence. It's a toolkit. So lots of freebies in there.